Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Kilcullen. I am the founder of Exploring the Wonder Years. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Olivia. And Olivia is going to tell us about her small businesses that she and her significant other are running. And just to give you some insight, Olivia and I have connected to talk about leadership today. That's going to be our focus, and really looking at the company's vision, strengths, challenges, and setting some goals. And so I think that we're in for a big treat here. Hello, Olivia.
Hi, I'm happy to be here talking with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you've made the time to connect with me, and I'm excited about this journey that we're about to take.
Yes, me too.
So Olivia, tell us everything that you have going on.
Yes, so the first business that I launched, and I kind of say it was almost launched on accident because the service was being provided first. And then when it was successful, I was like, oh, I have to wrap a business around this, right? It has to have a business structure. And that is teaching yoga to first responders. So I am a yoga teacher. I've been a yoga teacher for 18 years, and I had a desire to use yoga to serve my community. I was teaching yoga to veterans, to military, and then first responders. And the manner in which I teach yoga to first responders is unique. I teach traditional yoga, but I take away a lot of the westernized, trendy, woo-woo part of yoga that is a turnoff to people in public safety and military, which is why they're not using this really valuable tool. And I made it a little bit more militant, a little bit more straightforward. And the funny part about that is I studied yoga in India, and that's how they teach it there. The whole Lululemon sort of, aspect of it all is very much a westernized, business marketing situation, which is good for them. It's $1 billion industry, yoga. But I really wanted to sort of bridge this gap of here's this valuable tool and here are populations who could use it. So my approach to yoga worked. It was getting popular. I started at Los Angeles Fire Department. I was asked to teach at the police department. Other people wanted to learn my process. And all of a sudden, without trying, just in a grassroots way, people wanted to learn from me, and I had to sell tickets to this training that I was putting on. And so I'm like, well, if I'm exchanging money, I need to have a business structure. And the not-for-profit business structure made the most sense for this specific mission. And so that was the first thing that I started. And that 2013 was when I taught my first class to Los Angeles Fire Department. I had a fiscal sponsor. What a fiscal sponsor is they basically, you're under their umbrella for whatever their business structure is. And so I started off with that under another nonprofit so I could use their 501c3 status. And then in 2016, almost exactly 5 years ago, we became our own 501c3. So that's been going the longest, and it's probably the most robust. We're in like 32 out of 50 states. We've been in 5 different countries. We have hundreds of instructors, right? So that's probably the biggest animal. From there, we have 2 more businesses, and my husband, who's a retired firefighter, we run these businesses together. And the 2 for-profit businesses, one is a candle company, a small batch candle company that we make in our kitchen. And the need for that is that my husband and I are going through IVF treatment. We've been going through it for the last about 3 years. We've had 3 IVF cycles, 1 pregnancy and a miscarriage, and we're going into our 4th IVF cycle. And if anyone's familiar with fertility treatment, it is unforgivingly expensive. I mean, I'm talking about 1 round is about what you buy a car for. Yeah, and no guarantee that it's going to work, right? And we just were at a loss of how we were going to pay to keep going, because we don't want to stop and not have children. So I was inspired by another business a friend told me about, of a woman who was selling, blankets or clothing or whatever to pay for her IVF journey. And in the meantime, Eric was in the kitchen experimenting, making candles just for our own use because we love candles. So I looked at him in the kitchen. I was like, what if we sold those that you're making? And we're like, oh my God, this is brilliant. We're going to do this. We had not shared our IVF journey, which is another sort of big component here in the business world in general to talk about. Is we had not shared our IVF journey with anyone. We were probably a little embarrassed about it. No one except my immediate family knew I was pregnant and miscarried, like none of that. And so I said to my husband, if we're going to sell these candles because of the story we have, that means we have to share our story. So we went on social media and were very authentic, very transparent, very like, here's exactly what we went through. And we had made 50 holiday candles. And this was at the beginning of December of 2020. And we were like, okay, we hope that we can sell at least these 50 candles. Before our Facebook Live was over, we had sold all 50 candles. And we ended up selling, like 300 before the month was done. And we were up till 1 a.m. making these candles and not expecting this big order, but that's because of the story. So it's not the candles, we keep working to make a good product, of course, but they're not buying the candle, they're buying the story behind the candle, and I think that's really important too. And kind of the same thing happened with yoga for first responders, as I was really selling what I did. This is how I approached it. You have to have a face to the brand. And then the third business that is just coming up now is in a similar realm. I've been teaching yoga to cops and firefighters and military for stress management and resilience, right? Well, going through the IVF process, I was losing my resilience. I was under so much stress. And another thing when we talk about self-care is I hit burnout very badly in the end of December 2019, that I still feel that I am recovering from. And so I was using yoga to help with my journey through this conception process. Because another thing that I realized too is you can take all your supplements, you can take your, the medication and everything, but if you're not feeling good, it's not going to work. And even the fertility experts say your mental health has to be in check. So it was really important to me that I moved my body and moved my breath and did my mindfulness so that I was in a really good place to welcome a baby, right? And so I was doing yoga for my own conception journey. And then we're part of a support group. And at the end of the support group, I said to the ladies, like, do you guys want to join me for class? I'll teach you guys a class. So for the last couple months, I've been teaching, people on this conception journey, yoga classes live, a couple times a week. And it's getting really good feedback. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make this a thing. And so my husband and I created sort of an umbrella company, and all these little companies that, we're launching are falling underneath that umbrella. So he also wants to launch something with his experience as a firefighter and resiliency and stuff. So we have these little business ideas we're probably going to continue to come up with, and they're all going to fall underneath this umbrella. So that's what we're up to now.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing. I mean, there's so many things that you said there that are really resonating with me. One thing I want to mention, and I think, when we talk about professional development, vulnerability, I find is so important in so many aspects of our lives, right? For our mental health, for our physical health. If we're real about what is happening or our story or our narrative, many times we won't feel so isolated. And also, I think that being in community with other people that are dealing with similar things could help us, right? There's this thing in the Bible that speaks to iron sharpening iron, right? That if you're getting better, I'm getting better. We're
Right.
winning together. And so that's one of the things that has continued to, as I listen to what you have shared, that really resonates with me, thinking about that mental health piece. It's so important. One question I have about yoga for first responders: why did you start with first responders? Where did that vision or that mission come from?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and I can tell you probably what was consciously happening in my head and what was unconsciously happening. So consciously, I really did not like teaching in yoga studios or gyms because of the trendiness that I talked about, and they were just missing the mark of the actual intention of yoga.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, God, where could I teach where I could teach this authentic intention and I don't have to worry about what playlist I'm playing and what outfit I'm wearing, which is what the yoga studio where I was teaching in LA was giving me feedback on, instead of like the actual meat and potatoes of the yoga.
Yeah.
And then simultaneously, we're hearing lots of statistics about military and veteran suicide. So it was actually military and veterans that I started with. And then it was my mom that kind of, sort of said, well, what about first responders? We don't think, this is going into this whole issue too, is that we don't think about first responders a lot because we just expect them to be there, right? So you're going to call 911 and they're going to show up and they're always going to show up. And you're not thinking like that person has their own family that they have to go home to, they've seen, I can tell you I don't even ask my husband about his career. I don't want to have to put him in a position to tell me about everything he's seen.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you have to transition to happy mom and happy dad after, and so we don't think about them a lot. And there wasn't at that time a lot of support for them in the mental health realm. There's more now. Yeah. And so as soon as my mom said that, because, we were talking on the phone and a fire truck went by and she heard the sirens. And I think that's kind of like where that ping intuition came from. But I got really passionate about it really quickly. And this is where this sort of unconscious thing, came up years later. So I lived in New York City, and I lived in New York City during 9/11. So I was there on 9/11, and I went to school a block away from a fire station, a firehouse. And I'd walk by all the time, and they'd always be sitting out. They're the pride of Midtown, right? So they're sitting outside there, taking pictures with people. Like, part of being FDNY is like you're half a celebrity too, and everyone's taking pictures. So we'd walk by these guys all the time. They gave me a patch, and I still have the patch, which is up here somewhere. Yeah. And then 9/11 happened, and those guys I saw every day were faces on a billboard of like people they lost, right? And so, of course, like anyone who was in New York City and our whole country, was affected by 9/11. But, being right there, I think that stayed with me. And I think it just planted the seed of, I don't know, wanting to support that community. So I think that probably there's an undercurrent of that as well. And then when I started teaching them, they ate it up. They ate up and really need the actual yoga.
Yes. Yeah. My dad and my uncle were both in law enforcement. And so there's definitely an appreciation for what you have just shared. So thank you for that. Time management. Mm-hmm. With having 3 businesses, a family, right? How do you navigate that? What does your calendar look like? What does it look like?
Listen, first of all, I have to say this is an ongoing process and learning experience, and it's probably going to be for everyone. So whoever's listening, I want you to start by forgiving yourself if you feel like you haven't got it together. Because some days I'm like, yep, nailed it. And other days I'm like, well, I just literally worked like probably 45 minutes a day because of this distraction and that distraction that came up, right? So there's tools we can use. And I've definitely learned a lot and sought out what I call distant mentors. And from that phrase to me means like there are authors who I don't know personally, but through YouTube and their books and their, social media, I've been able to learn from them. So I'm constantly incorporating these things. And one of the first things that it was really difficult for me to learn and adopt, and I'm really switching my mindset here, is to work smarter and not harder. Working less and being more effective is better than putting in 10 hours a day thinking you're killing it and like you're on that hustle, right? All you're doing is leading yourself to burnout. I would rather work 5 hours a day and like really stay motivated and stay, feeling good. And so one of the people I learned this from, her name is Kate Northrup, and she wrote a book called Do Less. And so I really try to incorporate a lot of her tools. And one of the things that stuck with me is if you have a to-do list and for Tuesday and you finish it by noon, don't do anything else. You did your work for that day. Go have some self-care, go for a walk, you're done with your work. And because the work will never be done. That's the thing about running a business. It's never like, and complete. No, there's always going to be more stuff, right? So you have to put in the completion time yourself. And so when you're done and your to-do list is done, you're done for the day. So you have to allow yourself that. And another technique I use is time blocking. And I use a software for time blocking called Hour Stack. And so I will formulate my week with literally stacking these times and what I'm working on when. And that way, because a lot of times, especially with YFFR, so I'm the CEO of it and the founder and one of the lead instructors, there's a lot to do with that organization, and everyone wants me to get the thing done tomorrow, right? Everyone has the same pressing matter. So when someone asks me like, hey, when's this going to be done? I can tell them I've time blocked working on this on Thursday. And I know I'm going to hit it Thursday. They know I'm going to hit it Thursday. So time blocking, you can also, I haven't mastered this yet because it's kind of hard, but I've toyed with the idea of like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is admin stuff. Tuesday, Thursday is the creative stuff. So my brain is working one way all day. And I haven't mastered that yet, but at least with the time block, I can be like, okay, for the next 3 hours, I'm working creative stuff and then admin after. And Tim Ferriss also says, create before manage. So I try to do the creative stuff first and then the admin operational stuff later, because that admin operational stuff I hate and it'll burn my brain out that I don't even want to like be creative, right? So the time blocking and goal setting is huge for this too. So Eric and I set 10-year goals, 5-year goals, 3-year goals, 6-month goals, or 1-year goals, 6-month goals. And then it all trickles down to what are little things we can do weekly to hit these big goals, right? And the reason that's important and you have to put them somewhere to accomplish is that those big goals in 10 years seem so big that you're almost like, there's nothing I could do today to hit that huge goal. But there is, right? It's actually less than you think. It's really easy little bite-sized stuff that you can do that's so super achievable. But then it seems like such little minute stuff. You may forget to do it, or, oh, I'll do it tomorrow or next week. I've got time. So by creating these weekly light little bite-sized things, it keeps you moving towards your big 10-year goal. So, but I think the time blocking is huge. Like for instance, like because like I'm a full-time employee for YFFR. So here's the thing about nonprofits, everyone, is you're not the owner. Even if you start it, you don't own it. That's the whole thing about nonprofits. So I actually work as an employee for my own organization, and I work for a board of directors. And if the board of directors fired me from YFFR, I'd be fired like any other employee. It doesn't matter that I founded the organization, right? So that literally is my day job, is, as an employee, I'm the CEO of this nonprofit. So that's what I have to work on 8 hours a day. And then the other businesses, that's what we work on in the evenings and the weekends. And by evenings and weekends, I don't mean all evening, all weekend. I mean 1 hour. Well, I will make sure I work at least 1 hour, like say between 6 and 7. Then we'll eat dinner, and then we're going to watch a TV show, because I don't want to live in a world where I can't watch TV with my husband at the end of the night. You just don't want to say like, yeah, I'm going to hustle so hard. If you don't give yourself the time to just veg out or go for a walk or be with your family, there's going to be resentment both ways. You're going to, so it's really important that, even you do an hour, but, and then stop, So yes, those are some of the tricks that I use.
Those are really great. I love the allowing yourself, right? That piece of like giving yourself permission to stop,
Mm-hmm.
to watch TV, to do something other than work. That
Yeah.
protected time is really important. Being really intentional about what you're going to do during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the part about where you identify what do you things that you like to do and the things that you don't like to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be, again, going back to being real with what is happening.
Yeah.
The reality is we're not going to love every aspect
No.
of the work. And if you keep your eye on like, all right, I don't like this thing. And so maybe whatever your self-care routine is, maybe you do it right before you have to go into that administrative, wear that administrative hat.
Yeah.
And I like also what you said about that 10-year goal, the planting the seed now. If it's small
Mm-hmm.
seeds, with your eye on that long-term goal, it's really important, because the tree doesn't grow the same day you plant the seed, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and like, for instance, one of our 10-year goals is to buy a bigger house for X amount, right? So we realized like, oh my God, if we just put $90 a week away now, by the time we're ready to even consider a rental property or whatever, that will equal like a down payment, a small down payment or whatever. So we set up an automatic, transfer of $90. So it's little tiny things like that. Like, oh, I can't even think about a rental property for 5 years. No, by the time you're ready to think about it, right there in a silver platter is your down payment, So little tiny things like that, I think, are helpful and motivating.
Yeah.
Did you know that they've shown that when you click off, check off your to-do list, you get a hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
And so being able to have these tiny little things that you can just click off is making you want to do more of those little things, so super, super important.
Yes. That feeling of accomplishment. So I have taught psychology to college students for a number of years, and one thing I often say to them, that walking across the stage on graduation, not many people do it. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that feeling of accomplishment. We're all about what we want to smoke or the pill that we want to take so that we can feel a certain way. But just like what you just shared, even that one little thing, I accomplished this thing today. That
Mm-hmm.
feeling, it's just like there's nothing like it in my mind.
Yeah. They've also shown that those natural chemicals are more potent than the synthetic ones of drugs, right? So you really can give yourself that really awesome feel good feeling.
Amazing. Okay, this is so good. There's so many gems here that I'm really excited to continue this conversation. So before the pandemic, which I think that you have shared a little bit of what your company has looked like, is there any way, what differentiate for us, like before pandemic, during pandemic, what did it look like? Tell us the narrative.
So before pandemic, I was traveling quite a bit with Yoga for First Responders. We had probably 10 conferences that we'd like trade show conferences that we do a year. We did a few instructor schools, our training to train up instructors. I'd be sent out to teach in-service trainings for departments. I was probably traveling 1 to 2 times a month myself. And then we have our instructors across the country that are teaching all in person, so inside the department. Before pandemic, we already realized like, wow, we're kind of getting ourselves stuck with scalability. There's only so much you can do with manpower. And we recognized that we needed an online platform to reach more people who wanted our services but didn't have an in-person teacher locally. So we built an on-demand platform and app, and it was going to launch end of March 2020. And that was the goal since the fall of 2019. That was the projected date to launch. So when the pandemic happened and everything was canceled, I have to be honest, I was relieved at first because, again, I was burning myself out with the amount of traveling I was doing. So to not have to travel and have this amazing excuse to not travel, I was so happy, and Eric was so happy that we could just take like an exhale. And because everything stopped and no one knew how it was going to progress, there was kind of no work to do. And my first thing was not fear, not whatever, but like sigh of relief. Like, oh my God, I can sit on the couch. I can make dinner tonight. I can like do human things, right? So this is actually a thread I want to survive when we come out of the pandemic, is not go right back into that hustle, right? It kind of showed me what was really important. So we were launching the online platform anyway in March. That's a coincidence that, that came on so quickly. And we actually gave a lot of people 60 days of the app free. So we have a few free videos on the app, like a free version, and then we do have a full subscription version. And we gave anyone who wanted it 60 days of the full subscription, because we also wanted it a way for people to use these breathing techniques and yoga to calm their stress from COVID too. So started to get subscribers there. Then throughout the months, people were getting more creative. Like, can you teach my fire department via Zoom? So I was teaching fire departments on Zoom, which was interesting. A lot of the conferences went digital. So, started doing that. And so we were still reaching people. We were still doing our job, but it just, but it looked different. We were lucky that we got a grant from my alma mater to kind of also help us that year as well. And now, we've started in-person stuff up again. Some traveling is resumed for me. So I'm really honestly trying to work on, okay, how am I going to do this to meet the mission, but also save my heart and mind. But we're also keeping a lot of the creativity that was discovered because of the pandemic. So we're offering donation-based weekly classes via Zoom for anyone around the country. It was one thing we started. In fact, right after I talk to you, I'm recording a online conference presentation. So a lot of people are still doing the online conference thing. I think people realized how much more you can get done in this digital world. So that's something that we're keeping, that we learned. So to give you an idea of how it changed though, in 2019, as a company, we reached over 12,000 first responders and military with this tool, with this technique we teach. In 2020, we reached just under 9,000. So you see how it went down, but we were still able to reach people. And online, I don't have the number in front of me of how many users we had, but I do know that 23,000 videos were watched. So people watched a video all over the country, 23,000 videos. So they were making a lot of use of that too. So even though the in-person stuff went down, the digital stuff went up, and hopefully that digital stuff will stay and our in-person will increase, so that's kind of what it's looking like now.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think you're right about this moment or this pause, or the pandemic has shown us so much about how we're showing up for ourselves or not showing up for ourselves, right? In terms of like what we could. So recently I did this survey just to see what people for my business, what they would be interested in doing as far as like in person versus on Zoom. And lots of people did not select in person.
Mm.
And so it is it's interesting to see where we might go after this.
Yeah, I just have to tell you, it's so much better to just, for me, to be able to just walk from my living room into my office and do my job and walk back than wasting so much time driving and traveling. I mean, it's just wasting time. And, I have a 13-year-old dog and I want to be with her, as much as I can and do my job.
Yes.
So I think I do hope that a lot of people, see the value that we've done out of necessity. We found out of necessity.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that you have talked a lot about this as far as over the past, I guess, 13, 14 months now. How have things been for you personally, professionally? What are some strengths, challenges, learnings? I think you've already started to address this question, but is there anything else that maybe you want to share with us? Strengths, challenges, learnings.
Yeah. So the discovery, the biggest discovery was, wow, I think I'm more of an introvert than I thought. The shifting also what's a priority. I think that's the big thing too, right? Because before the priority was get out, get the mission going, hustle, 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 and being home. And also we were going through IVF during this time too, is wow, my priority is my family. And that's why I 100% love my nonprofit and the mission, and it's my baby and I love it. But what I really love about the two other businesses that are smaller and newer, but they're directly impacting my family and me.
Mm-hmm.
So the nonprofit is of service to others. And yes, that's important that we serve our community and our country and all that stuff. But I was getting resentful because all my energy was to support someone else.
Yeah.
And even with self-care I did or whatever, it was still not, it was not enough. And when we started this company to pay for our IVF, when, for instance, we have a separate account for the candle company, and that's the debit card I use to pay my bills at the fertility clinic. And I can't tell you how relieving that is, because the insurance doesn't cover any of it. So I went for a blood draw, and before I left, I had an $80 bill just for a blood draw, right? I got an ultrasound, it was $600. So being able to use that debit card from our efforts of being up till 1 a.m. making candles, and here, this is directly helping me, is a different kind of feeling than being of service to other people, which is also wonderful, but it's a different kind of thing. And so I really made a discovery this year that my priority is my own health, my sanity, my family. And that's what I have to start making decisions on, and while balancing that with work, right? So I think that was a big thing. The other thing that I don't even want to get into too much, but I just have to say that it's there, is the pandemic and the social injustices in the country this year and everything, right? I've worked really hard to protect the nonprofit from the political sides of all of that, right? Because, for instance, okay, COVID and the mask wearing, we wanted to do an in-person training at the end of the year. We were given the go ahead to do it. Basically, because we work for the police department, we were exempt from the gathering order because we were directly affecting essential workers, right? So I said, okay, we can gather these 35 people together, but everyone will wear masks at all times. They have their own yoga mat that's 6 feet apart. Like, we put really, really stringent things in place, because I was not going to have a COVID case come out of my training, right? But then, like, a couple of our people that worked for us decided they didn't like that I gave a green light to a gathering at the end, in 2020. Also, what I have to balance too as a leader is that if I don't do these things and my company doesn't make money, we're done. There's no company. A balance with health too, right? So I want to make sure everyone stays healthy, but I also have to run this business. And I consulted a lot of advisors on this, and a lot of people who work directly on the front lines of COVID who said, listen, as long as you're protecting yourself, you should be okay. I sought a lot of advice for this, but unfortunately, there was so much political and so much opinion around everything that you have to be so careful about the choices you make. And that added a lot of stress, right? Because everyone looks to you as the leader, like, how are you going to respond to this? Or are you going to respond to this? And that added a lot of stress. And ultimately, my job is to protect the nonprofit from having an opinion on something. My only job was to keep people safe. And so that was this challenge, this unexpected challenge of something to me that's just a global pandemic. Let's help us stay healthy, became this crazy two-sided thing, so that's challenging to navigate when you have a business and people are looking to you like, what's the business going to say about this, right? So that was challenging.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that a lot of people leaders that will watch this will be able to identify with what you're saying. This idea of there are many masters, right? When you're in leadership, that you have to consider and then make a decision and stand by your decision.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that it feels different when you're, you mentioned earlier this day job, right? That you're an employee, even though this was your baby and you're an employee there. And then also this other, the other two businesses that they're your babies too, but they feel very different, right?
Right.
This idea of leadership, it's like within that role, there are many times that you'll have to make this decision and then just say, okay, I've made it. I've considered everyone and everything, because I think that's also a leadership style, right? Not many, there are other styles where people are like, I'm just going to make the decision and I'm not going to consider everyone's opinion, and I'm going to have to just sleep on it, and that's it. So it's challenging. It's challenging. And I think a lot of people will be able to identify with what you have shared.
Yeah, and there's an art to managing people. It's really managing people and personality and all that stuff, even though like some meetings I actually go into it knowing exactly what my decision is, but I know that people just need to be heard too. And it's not that I'm not listening to them to change my mind, because maybe they would, but it's like, it's mainly about these people just want their opinion heard, and then we're going to move forward a certain way, so it's really about managing people. And speaking of that too, and balancing stuff, is my husband also works for the organization, and he's CFO, which is technically under me as CEO, and we do a really good job of balancing and making that distinction of work and home. But sometimes it's just like, I remember I was in the kitchen the other day and I was kind of telling him, like, this is what we're doing about the situation, and you need to tell this person who works under him that this is how we're moving forward. That's what I've decided, blah, 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 right? And we're in the kitchen. And then I go around the island and I go over to give him a kiss. And I remember he kind of like backed away. And it wasn't like he was mad at me, but it was interesting. We kind of laughed because it was almost like, why is my boss trying to kiss me? You know what I mean? Because we had this like boss employee like dynamic. And then when I went to kiss him, all of a sudden it was like, because he was thinking of me as like this, as a boss. We were like laughing, and he's like, sorry. He's like, didn't make the transition to wife yet, So there's that, like, and I was like, you're about to call HR on me, right? So So it's a very, it is, it's an art, and it doesn't always, work out perfectly. But the thing is about, you said about standing by your decision, another marker of a good team is that the team also needs to get on board with your decision. So if you and Joe been going back and forth and he disagrees with you and you say, I hear what you're saying, but because of this and this, we're moving forward this way, Joe needs to get on board with the team and move forward together. Joe can't keep doing his job saying, well, I really think we should have done this. So it's the team also has to sort of say, like, we're going to get behind our leader, even if I had a different point of view about it. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good working environment.
Yes, yes. I know earlier we talked about how, I believe leadership is anyone who you influence others, right? This idea of leadership. If you have an opportunity, I'm sorry about the alarm that's going off, of course, right in this moment.
Yeah, that happens.
So thinking about the opportunity to influence others, I think what you're saying also reminds me of the parenting dynamic. I've done some videos with my son's father, and we talk about how we fight it out behind the scenes when my son was younger. And maybe there's moments where we do it now and he's 23 years old, where we're talking behind the scenes. But that idea of like a united front, right? Giving people an opportunity to say, okay, this is your decision. I need you to hear that this is where I stand, right? I think that's important for leaders, to allow their folks to say what's on their mind, to hear them, to respect what they have said. And then it's like, okay, now this is the decision that we're going to make in this moment, or I'm going to make in this moment. Something that I was thinking about is, how many times or how often do you think about your mission statement or your overall vision when you're making decisions? Is that something that you're always kind of checking back in on throughout your process?
Yeah, and you need to, maybe remind yourself to do that. But that's why the mission and vision are there. And what's great about having a mission and vision and core values too, is that is your ticket to say no to something. So if it does not align, then, you can say we're not going forward with this, and it's not aligning with this core value we have, so that's, because, you want to stay sort of in the lane, like in your niche, and there will be invitations to do this and do that. Like, some people were asking me, like, oh, why don't you take everything you do for first responders and let's work on it and teach it to kids? And I'm like, I'm not passionate about that first, but also, like, it's, what's my mission? So we go back to YFFR, and the mission says, to teach traditional yoga to first responders and military. It does not say kids in there. So that would be a whole new business, a whole new thing, a whole new mission statement, right? So it's good to cross-check with your mission and your vision, to be able to remind yourself to stay in your lane, even if you are tempted to do all these great opportunities. You have to say no. Also, I encourage people to really get specific and boring with their mission and vision. What I mean by that is, what really annoys me is when I look at an organization's mission or vision and I have no idea what they're talking about. There are a lot of beautiful words like support the community, encourage. You have to be specific. So when I look, like, what does this organization do and why and for who? So if it's just like, our organization is to support the community and encourage growth through self-minded, whatever. What does that mean? Just say, like, we teach job skills to youth in, low income areas. Boom. What's your vision? That youth in low income areas, 88% go to college, like, whatever your vision of it is. And I would have trouble sometimes making a distinction between mission and vision. And then I read somewhere that your vision is there were two things that struck me. I'm forgetting the one of them, but the second one was like, describe your output in 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And that's the vision, right? Well, in 10 years from now, we have, everyone practicing yoga in all police academies around the country, right? So that's sort of the vision. And then the mission is, how am I doing it? I am going to bring yoga into, so I just encourage people, instead of thinking of like how fancy and beautiful I can say this, literally just tell me what you're doing. So if I went to your website and I had $1,000 to donate, I could look at it and be like, yes, this is something I want to donate to, because I know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's really helpful. This idea of lose the jargon, right? It's just like, get to the point. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? That's really helpful. Okay, so thinking about self-care, which you've mentioned, I mean, throughout, right? Self-care for yourself, self-care for others, and really supporting that. One thing I want to also say, you talked about like holding both, right? Self and also supporting other human beings through the process of keeping themselves well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is this idea of holding both, and I'm truly hoping that after the pandemic, post-pandemic, we can really learn from that lesson, keep that lesson, stay true to it, that we're holding ourselves and others responsible for our own self-care or their self-care. I don't know. Okay. So what are your self-care routines?
Yeah. So I want to point something out that's important about self-care. It can look like a luxurious bath and a massage, but it also can look like financial responsibility, right? And so sometimes self-care has a twinge, not even a twinge, very much has been put in the privileged category, right? Because you're like, well, I can't afford a freaking massage every week for my self-care. I'm trying to just survive, right? So there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If look it up, and the first level is your basic needs, your food, your water, your shelter, right? If people are worried about that, then there's no way they can get up to the top of here of like, what's going to make me feel good today? Like, they're not even worried about that, right? So self-care really has to start from the bottom. And if you are worried about your finances because you have no idea what money's in the bank, or, you have to start with that as your self-care before taking a hot bath is going to help you. So the goal, so every Friday morning, Eric and I go to a coffee shop in the morning before work, and we work on our goals that I told you about before. So we have 2 sets of goals, financial and business. And the other one, and even he kind of was shying away from it, and I said, no, this is important, is personal. And what do we personally want? And that sort of falls in that personal self-care too. We want to make sure we get out in nature every week. We want to make sure we have a spiritual practice. And he almost said, oh, like, do we have to do that? I was like, yes, we have to do the personal goals, because first of all, they feed each other. And this shows how little people prioritize feeling good, that we're spending all this time on business and financials and no time on, what do I want? I want to redo my bathroom. What do I want the bathroom to look like that's going to make me feel good in my own home, right? So that needs to have attention to it. So starting, like I said, from 10 years, trickling down, and then every week we check in. What did we do last week? How much did we accomplish? These are the things we want to get done this week, all leading up to that. To me, that weekly check-in is self-care, because it prioritizes my life and what I need in my life. It's time and connection with my husband. We see the same coffee shop lady, and she knows us and we know her, and that community like gives me that joy feeling. So there are all these little things, and I can look forward to something every Friday. That's self-care, right? Another thing is I move my body every day. And I was a professional dancer in my past life. And so my body was always kept in shape to be a tool to perform. And, since going through IVF, I have to approach my body differently. I can't be working out as hard as I was, drinking caffeine drinks all the time, right? I'm softer. I move my body now not to hone my muscles for my career, but to move blood around and to change hormone levels. And it's true that when you move your body, your stress hormone levels go down and your joy hormone levels go up. That's why any exercise, including yoga, is super crucial. So another little self-care thing about this, which I try to move my body once a day, it ends up being probably like 5 times a week. That I want to point out for people with kids and how I want to be when I have kids. So I mentioned my dog earlier. At 13 years old, she needs to be by my side all the time. She follows me around and my heart breaks for her. But if I brought her in here when I did my workout, see, I have my yoga mat right there. She's up in my grill. She's not letting, right? It's not enjoyable for me. And I have made the choice, but I would let her in anyway because of her little face, right? But I'd let her in anyway and sacrifice my exercise time because my dog wanted to be with me. And Glennon Doyle wrote a book called Untamed, if anyone read that. And she has a line in there that says, you, as a mother, you want to be a model, not a martyr. And Eric pointed out to me that I have to start that behavior now for our future children. So I have to shut my dog out and give myself 30 minutes of time for myself. Because if that were my daughter, what she would see is a model of someone who takes priority in 30 minutes alone to help herself. And then she'll grow up saying, okay, that's what I should do too, right? So taking that time to, I know your baby wants to be with you, but she's fine with her dad. You're going to go do your thing. And then you take the baby and the dad has show, for the future generation, what that looks like. But yeah, so taking that time to move my body. And, I eat well and that self-care, but you know what else is self-care? On Friday, I wanted to order a pizza. And we did. And I don't order pizza every night, but when you crave it, like what kind of a world would I live in if I'm not allowed to order pizza on Friday night, right? So it's this balance of like, listen, if you eat donuts every day and then you have one salad, it doesn't make you healthy. So if you eat salads all the time and you have pizza, you're not like killing yourself either. So my biggest self-care thing is just give myself grace and relax. I'm used to being really hard on myself. I go to therapy. That's really important as a proactive tool. Eric and I have a wonderful, amazing marriage. We also go to couples therapy as a proactive thing, not, like, okay, now we're broken, we're going to go to therapy. Life is hard. You need a coach, right? You need someone in your corner. So therapy is a big thing, but I would say if anything, sleep is another big one. All of this is prioritizing, yourself. And so I need to sleep 8 or 9 hours a night, and I need to not feel guilty about it. Everything we do needs to go towards feeling good. If it feels good for us and our highest good, it's right, and you need to prioritize it. If it feels bad or obligatory or shameful or anything like that, it's not right. So don't pressure yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. to get work done if you need your sleep, Right. And some people, I know great leaders are all about waking up at 5 a.m. and getting shit done. And listen, I used to be that way too, but in this season of my life, we're trying to conceive, I'm trying to be slower and get more sleep. I also have to tell myself it is okay to sleep till 7:30 or 8 in the morning so you feel good. So that's the kind of stuff I think about for my own self-care, so that I can do all the things I have, all the goals that I do have to do.
Again, the theme that you brought up earlier about your time management is allowing yourself, right? That giving yourself the permission to do what you need to do. And I also love that accountability piece. Not only are you and your husband accountable to one another, which I think is really important um, when you're in therapy, which I'm a big believer in therapy. My son always says, well, ask mom. She would say everyone should go to therapy, and I truly believe that. But you're also there's an accountability partner there too, right?
Mhm.
Say you're going to work on something, there's someone that's going to constantly check up,
Yeah.
and not in a shaming sort of way. It's like what got in the way and things like that. So I think, yeah, thank you for, and I think the other part, going back to sleep and how important that is, if you are protecting time to do some of your, some of the work and the goals that you have set, if you have that protected time, allowing sleep is really important so that you can get up and be productive in those
Right.
moments, you know? And I often say to people, taking a 20-minute nap when you need it
Mhm.
throughout the day, right? Not getting too comfortable in your bed with the cover over your head in pajamas. No, if you're sitting, somewhat comfortable posture, take the 20 minutes, set a timer. And I have found that, when I too work a full-time job during the day, and then I have the business after hours and on weekends, similar to what you have shared. Sometimes I need to take that 20-minute nap in order to be productive for the next job or role
Yeah.
responsibilities that I have.
And we're one of the only countries that doesn't prioritize rest or have, built-in siesta times or 3 months off in the summer. I mean, just our Western culture is so, they admire hustle more than like, not realizing that someone will be more productive if they're just happier. And
Yes.
I had to learn that, and I'm still working on it. I kind of learned on it from hitting burnout, where I totally hit burnout and was out. I took 2 weeks off. I was like, don't, no one talk to me. I'm done. Like, so it was these two extremes. And so you have to find something in the middle,
Yeah,
in order to be sustainable.
yeah, for sure. And I think, one other thing that I would like for us to definitely touch on is showing gratitude or appreciation to your clients, especially when you have the three businesses. What does that look like for you?
Mhm. So yeah, because it does look different depending on your business model and who your clients are. Because with yoga for first responders, even though we're serving first responders, our clients are actually police and fire department and Department of Defense. So those are who we're giving contracts to and getting money from, not the individual firefighter. So, so that's sort of a different client, I would say. uh the appreciation, I do think that appreciation and making that community and someone feeling like they're part of your community is very, very important. We go out of our way a lot for our clients, sometimes to our own you know I don't know, fault a little bit, that we make a few too many compromises maybe, but that's because you really want to get the mission out here or there, right? So one thing we do, which is great about being a nonprofit, is we do fundraising and sponsorship, and this is why fundraising is extremely important for nonprofits. um, we've never denied a department our program because they couldn't pay for it. And we always pay our instructors too.
Mhm.
That's important to me, for an instructor to be paid for their time.
Yep.
So that's where fundraising comes in. So if a department says, yeah, this is just not in our budget, we'll be like, okay, we have a budget for 8 weeks for you for a program. So we're paying our instructor and they get it for free, right? And that also gives them time to do whatever they need to do in their budget. So I would say that is the appreciation, is that we make sure they know that they're their first priority to us, and them getting that mission out. And then we also support them with anything that they need. So we don't just say, okay, here's your teacher and that's it. We're having after action meetings with them. Like, hey, how did this go? Do you want anything different to make it more successful? So we're constantly working with them and showing our support, that we're not just like, hey, you bought a yoga program. It's, we do evaluation data summaries to show them how effective the program was for their personnel, and really trying to be a team member, partner with them. So that's for YFFR. For the candle company, again, so now we're dealing with individuals buying the candles. And what I came up with for them, because you want to make your people feel special too, right? That they're part of the club. So I created a VIP list, and this VIP list, you can add your email to it. And when we have a new candle released, I only release it to that VIP list, and I give them 3 days of 20% off. So they have 3 days to solo shop that candle and do 20% off before I put it on the main website. And for instance, we did that for Mother's Day candle last weekend, and our VIP list sold it out before we even put it out to the public. Right? So you'd have to be on the VIP list, even get the opportunity to buy the Mother's Day candle. So that's one way. And people really dig that. Like if they didn't see the email, they're like, I didn't see the email this month. And, they'll message me or whatever. So people are waiting and looking for that email to get the new candle. So there's that. And then the most recent thing with the yoga for the conception journey, my yoga classes for those in the fertility world, I was giving them for free recently as I launched it, just trying to get people, to know about it and come. And I've had probably an average about 6 people come each time. I've only been doing it for a couple months, but now it's time to start adding a cost for it. But I don't want all of a sudden these people who I've been giving yoga to just be like, hey, now it's $15. I just felt like that would land a little bit weird. I'm also in a balance too, by the way. I have a real heart of servitude. So I'm really trying to teach myself that I hold a value and that I am worthy of charging for my services, right? Because I'm always thinking, oh, I just want everyone to have it. Well, I have to take care of myself and, make sure I charge for it, because I do bring a lot of value. I'm a great instructor. So I'm like, okay, what can I do here to start charging for these classes, but also let this group of women who have come every single week, let them know that I want them to keep coming. So again, there are only about maybe 6 to 10 people. I gave them all a forever discount code for free. And so this group of 10 people will always be my OGs, right? They can always come for free. And I gave them a discount code for their friends and family for a discount for their first class or whatever. So I'm hoping that this little group of 10 people will invite other people. I'm also going to be asking them for testimonials too, but now I know that I will always have people. No one will not show up to my class, right? I was afraid I had this great momentum and then all of a sudden I'd charge for it and no one would show up. I want the energy. You have to put out this energy that every week these classes are happening, even if I only make $15 from one new person, So that's how I felt better about this group, that we sort of had created this bond together by doing yoga. We can keep that. And they know, when I told them, ladies, I'm going to start charging for this. I want you to have it free forever, but just know I'm going to start charging for this. So they know, okay, this is happening, but they're special. And I think because they're special, they'll keep showing up and I'll keep teaching them. And I don't know, that was my way to kind of show appreciation to that group.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's so much that you have said that I think is really important for people to hear. One thing that's coming to mind, and this has been a struggle for me too. When you're talking about stuff like wellness, which is what my business, when I think about what is it that I do, right, and just lose the jargon. It's like, let's talk about wellness in this community together. That's what it is. And so this idea of, this self-worth and knowing that you're doing a good job and the value that you bring to the moment, it's, yeah. And I think there also, I have found that if people don't put, not even if it's $1 to, $5,000, if they don't pay, then it's like, well, I'm not losing anything. Even if it's as little as $1,
Oh, yeah.
there's a different investment when it's like, you know what, I did send a couple of dollars. I made the commitment to myself and to this person. So I'm going to show up to this class or whatever it is. So I truly understand what you're saying. And balance is really important in that. Yeah, yeah. Olivia, this has been so amazing. I think, like I said earlier, thank you. Thank you for doing this. I believe that the message that you have shared today, people can walk away with truly so much. I mean, we talked about time management. We talked about, this accountability, that just allowing yourself permission to do and not do. And, thank you. Thank you. I
Oh, thank
value your time.
you. Well, I'm happy to do it. I love talking about this stuff because a lot of the times when I do interviews or talks like this, it's about the yoga itself, right? It's never really been about how am I doing all of this stuff, which I've learned quite a bit about that. And so I'm really happy to be able to share it.
Great. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 to all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Olivia, how can people find you?
So Yoga for First Responders is at Yoga for First Responders on all social media platforms and yogaforfirstresponders.org. For me, my website is Olivia Mead, MEAD.com. And it's through that you can find links to Yoga for First Responders, links to the candle company, links to Yoga for the Conception Journey. And then on Instagram, you can find at Flicker Mill Candles, that's the name of our candle company, and at Yoga for the Conception Journey.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to add all of the Olivia's details in the notes on the YouTube channel. So please look for Olivia there. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have found value in the message that we have shared with you today. And again, I'm Danielle Kilcullen from Exploring the Wonder Years. Thank you all.